Jaani Kivinen, welcome to the Ji.hlava International Documentary Festival,
Yeah.
where you're screening War Peace. And it's a fascinating film that looks at the weather underground. And as I understand it, the film didn't start out to be about the weather underground.
No, actually, as the editor, I've been with the film for like at least 4 years. 4 years ago we started, and first of all the subjects were a bit different. It was more about the Vietnam War and President Nixon and John Lennon. But over time the subject toned down, and we found out it's after that more about the weather underground and comparing their actions to things happening nowadays.
Yeah. Much of what they say does speak to our times, and is quite relevant now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because there's a lot of recent years has been a lot like demonstrations and political influences and things that happen there. It's like comparing where we can go and what did they do and what we can learn from them.
Right.
What's happening right now.
Yeah. I mean, and there was a remarkable connection even between one of the subjects in the film is Bill Ayers, who was a critical figure in the underground movement, and there was an attempt to assassinate the character of Barack Obama when he was a candidate by saying that he was a friend of Bill Ayers.
Yeah, that's it's a nice example to bring the Bill Ayers to nowadays and how he's influencing still, and how those actions back then are still influencing politics these days. At the last election, not last, the previous. Before
Right. And then we also learned that in the 60s, protest movement leaders were trying to find their way and for a time embraced violence, and then realized that they needed to move to nonviolence, and that this is still a process going on now among demonstrators and protesters against what they consider corrupt regimes.
Yeah. So I think it's a thing that is kind of like learning from history, because they usually say that people don't really learn from history like that. But it's maybe one of the points with the film is to make sure that you can show that this thing happened and it didn't work the way they intended, and every now and then those things come up again, and maybe how they work nowadays is a bit different, hopefully.
Now, as editor of the film, many directors prefer to bring in an editor who has no background in the film, and they can see everything fresh with so they can spot things that the filmmaker might not see, because they become sort of, they're in the middle of the forest. It's hard to see it objectively. But you, in this case, you were involved from the start. So.
Yeah. I was from the start, just even before they started shooting. But I actually wasn't with them when they were on the trip to America and everywhere on the shoots. So in that way, I was still kind of the different person who saw the materials and could inspect those. But I was still there the whole time. Making the documentary is a bit like a living process that we did it like the 3-4 years. Like sometimes we did a couple of months, and then we had a break and didn't do anything like several months or half a year, and then we did a bit. So it's kind of like that.
Sometimes it's better to just process the material almost subconsciously, not think about it, and then return, and you get connections and structure that way.
Yeah, and especially with this film, because it's very strange that things happen in the world when things change. There's elections and different presidents and everything, and you kind of have to, when it's very topical, you really have to respond to it very kind of like fast. And after a while, things that are said in the film might seem very different because the situations have changed so much, and when the viewer sees the audience sees it, it could be a very different film, a very different kind of experience then.
Right, you had to do some last-minute cutting after the Trump election and victory, and well, I hope people will be able to see it before you have to cut it again.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think we are going to do that right now anymore, but that's also interesting even now that as I watched it today, there are different things that has happened now that I look at it a bit different, and would like to tone some things or even talk about this. How does this feel, and how about that?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I wish you all the best with the film.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I could say that also that there was also interesting thing happened. There's the New York premiere also this weekend.
That's right.
And there are a couple of main characters, the Bill Ayers and Kathy Wilkerson.
Oh, they're present for the screenings?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
that would really be something.
yeah.
Well, the New Yorkers should get a hell of a response.
Yeah, and they haven't seen each other or talked to each other in a long time. So kind of maybe this film also makes kind of peace with them if they've had an arguments in the past. So that's kind of interesting to have a film also have that kind of effects on people.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. Maybe it'll appear on Netflix.
Yeah, Let's see.
You don't have to cut out that line.
Yeah, that one line. Yeah, that's true.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.